Hello, my name is Blake, and I will welcome you back to the very last episode of our election series, the Three Trails Community. Guys, I don't know about you, but after the election, I've heard this over and over and over again about how divided we are. And what saddens me is that I feel like when we hear that, what we're really saying is, I'm right, and when you get right, we can stop being divided. But you know, when it comes to being a Christian and Jesus being your king, you know what he says? He says, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the sons of God. What Jesus is saying is that if you want the United States to stop being divided and you really want them united, you know whose job it is? Followers of Jesus. That's our role. Now, the word peacemaker literally means not only to get rid of all the violence, but to restore all the wrongs. Now, I know we're not going to have perfect unity until Jesus comes back. They didn't have it in his time. But it is our job to add to the peace. So if I hear you say, or if you're thinking we're so divided, what the next thing out of your mouth should be is, how am I trying to bring unity in the midst of the division? Now, Jesus continues on this moment, or this thought of a peacemaker. And he says, you've heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be children of your Father in heaven. For he causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good. He sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Don't even the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet only your brothers and sisters, what are you doing out of the ordinary? Don't even the Gentiles do the same? Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. So Jesus is talking to his Jewish audience. And what's going on is, it says in the beginning of Matthew 5 that he gathers all of his disciples. And so in this Jewish audience, he's going to bring up two really divisive people. One is, he says, the tax collectors, and then he also says the Gentiles. Now, the Gentiles to a Jew is those who are not in a covenant relationship with God. Those are the ones who don't have God. Those are the ones who don't have hope. Those are the ones that they kind of like, ooh, the dirty, nasty Gentiles. And then he says the tax collectors. Now, this is really important. We're going to get into this in incredible topic. But a tax collector, during this time, the Jewish nation was underneath the Roman Empire. And what the Romans would do is that they would collect taxes from the people. Now, what they would do is that, kind of like a McDonald's, they would sell franchises of these tax collecting booths. And you would have one guy who would kind of run like a region. He was the chief tax collector. And underneath him, you'd have these little tax collectors. And Rome, all they cared about was that if you got enough taxes to pay what we wanted, the rest of the money goes to you. And they would have been able to use the Roman soldiers to apply force if they didn't get what they wanted. So these people, what was interesting to the Jews is that a tax collector had lost their access to go to the synagogue and to go to temple worship. So they were a Jew with no religious affiliation. They were without a God, really. And so what he's saying here is that if you just love those who love you, you're just like those people that you say is not good enough to go to the temple. And then I love the phrase, if he says, if you only greet those people. And in Bible times in the Middle Eastern world, and we used to live in Africa, and I remember this, greetings was so important. See, our greetings, we'll say, hey, how are you doing? And I don't even wait for you to say good, and I just keep going. But their greetings was a relationship. And basically what he's saying is if you only have a relationship with people who are like you, if you only do your brothers and sisters, he's like, you're not doing anything out of the ordinary. Going back to our topic, it is not out of the ordinary to have the division in our country. And so if you're just adding to it, if you're dropping your Facebook account because you don't want to hear other people's opinions, if that is you, you're doing the ordinary. But if you're looking for opportunities to build peace, you know what you're doing? The extraordinary. Now you may say, well, Blake, the times are so divided. Did you know that there were 5 political parties among the Jews when the Romans were there? And a lot of it had to do with the relationship with them in Rome. You had the Herodians, they were on their liberal, and when I say liberal in their times, is those who were about the nation of Israel were conservative, and those who were for Rome were the liberals. And so there were those Jews who were like, we like the Roman Empire, we like Herod, we follow him. And then you had the Sadducees, they were the religious elite, they were the priests, but they were also the liberals. They didn't believe in the supernatural. They really didn't believe in all the other parts of the Bible. And so even though they controlled the Temple Mount, they controlled the worship, they were extremely liberal, but they were those who had all the power. And they were also aristocratic. They had the silver spoon. The Pharisees were the moderates. Now, religiously, they weren't. They were extremely conservative to the law of God, even to the point where they added more laws. But when it came to their relationship with Rome, they were willing to work with the Roman government to get what they needed, even though they were waiting for the day for the Messiah to come and to set up his kingdom. And then you have the Essenes. Now, the Essenes are extremely conservative, okay? And they were all about purity, but they were a little bit different in the fact that they knew the world was evil, and so they retreated. In fact, today, the reason why we have the Dead Sea Scrolls is that the Essenes went away from Jerusalem, secluded themselves, and had copies of the scriptures. That's where that comes from. And I would kind of say in today's age, they are the Christians, and I'm not knocking them, this is just relating. They're the Christians who say, listen, my kids can't watch Disney. I'm going to go to all Christian movies. I'm going to go to all Christian TV shows. I'm going to go to all Christian schools. I'm going to seclude myself because the world is that evil. And then you had the Zealots. They were extremely conservative in action and faith, but they were nationalistic. Even to the point that they thought they were doing God's business when they would assassinate Roman soldiers and Roman authority figures. And so this is what's going on when Jesus goes to set up his kingdom and to set up his followers. Now, Matthew 10 says that when Jesus has his followers follow him, the only groups that are really mentioned is we've got Matthew the tax collector. Remember the liberal? He was viewed as a traitor. He extorted people. But when Jesus came by his tax collecting booth one day, he said, come and follow me. And in Matthew 9, it gives us an amazing story. Matthew leaves it all. See, he went to the Roman world and became a tax collector because it was like the Roman dream. He got money, riches, but he lost his conscience in the middle. He would have been kicked out of the religion. So Matthew was one of those people that would sell his kid for $1. But then when Jesus shows up on the scene and he says, follow me, he gives up the whole business and goes off and leaves it for him. And then we're given Simon the Zealot. He literally was a part of this group. In 85, so right as Jesus was born, there's a guy named Judas the Galilean who was a zealot. And he raised an insurrection, and they literally tried to kill as many people as possible. And that's the people Simon was a part of. Also, in 70 AD, the Zealots as Israel was being invaded by Rome, the Zealots started killing off the Jews who were in the towers or behind the walls, who were wanting to negotiate, because to them the Gentiles were the enemy. So here we have Jesus collecting his disciples. These people that he says, these are my special 12. These 12 are going to spend every day with him. He picks an ultra-right conservative and an ultra-left liberal who both decided that what they were pursuing wasn't as valuable as following him. So after he fed the 5,000, there was this really amazing moment where Jesus is talking to the people who just want to be fed. They don't want him as king. And he makes this incredible things. He goes, this statement, he says, listen, if you don't eat my body as flesh and drink my blood as wine, literally, if you don't consume me, if I'm not your every waking moment, if I'm not what you're dependent on, you can't be my disciple. And it says from that moment on, many of his followers left. And he looks at his inner circle, the 12, which Simon and Matthew would have been in it. And he said, guys, are you going to leave me too? And I love what their director, their main representative said. He said, From that moment, many of the disciples turned back and no longer accompanied him. So Jesus said, "You don't want to go away too, do you?" And Simon said, "Lord, to whom will we go? You have the words of eternal life. We have come to believe and know that you are the Holy One of God." See, what the disciples found out was that first they believed in God. See, they had an understanding of the scriptures. They knew who Jesus was intellectually. That's what the word believe meant. And they're like, listen, we believe. But he says, we've come to know, which means we have interacted and we intimately know. In fact, in the first century, when they would say someone knew his wife, it was an idea of that type of intimacy. And so when they're saying we know you, it's like we have spent years with you. We understand you. Listen, Simon is going, I did the Israel dream. I was all about making Israel great again. I would have killed for the kingdom. But I found that Jesus is more important than Israel. And Matthew would have said, man, I followed the Roman dream. I made money left and right. But when Jesus came, I found out that he has the words of life. He is the eternal one. So guys, listen, the reason why followers of Jesus can be peacemakers is that we have found the most valuable thing on earth, and it's in a relationship with God. All these things that we fight over, they mean nothing when we die. They're temporal. So what we need to be doing is two things. When you're interacting with someone who is a follower of Jesus, you need to focus more on the fact that what you have in common, Jesus. They're not a follower of Jesus. You should be doing everything you possibly can to build a relationship with them because you want them to have what you have. Guys, I hope you've learned a lot in this study, but more than anything, as we continue to walk through this election, as we walk through all the stuff that's going on in our nation, I have a charge for you. Do you want to be the reason why there's division, or you want to be the reason why there's peace? It's up to you. Who's more important, Jesus or everything else?